Japan is a country in East Asia. It is a group of many islands close to the east coast of Korea, China and Russia. The Pacific Ocean is to the east of Japan and the Sea of Japan is to the west. Most people in Japan live on one of four of the islands. The biggest of these islands, Honshu, has the most people. Honshu is the seventh largest island in the world. Tokyo is the capital of Japan and its biggest city. The Japanese people call their country, Nihon, or Nippon, which means the origin of the sun, in Japanese. Japan is a monarchy whose head of state is called the emperor. History. The first people in Japan were the Ainu people and other Jomon people. They were closer related to Europeans or Arabs. They were later conquered and replaced by the Yayoi people, early Japanese and Ryukyuans. The Yayoi were an ancient ethnic group that migrated to the Japanese archipelago mainly from southeastern China during the Yayoi period, 300 BCE to 300 CE. Modern Japanese people have primarily Yayoi ancestry at an average of 97%. The indigenous Ryukyuan and Ainu peoples have more Jomon ancestry on the other hand. The earliest records on Japan are from Chinese documents. One of those records said there were many small countries, in Japan, which had wars between them and later a country, ruled by a queen, became the strongest, unified others, and brought peace. The Japanese began to write their own history after the 5th and 6th centuries, when people from Korea and China taught Japan about the Chinese writing system. Japan's neighbors also taught them Buddhism. The Japanese changed Buddhism in many ways. For example, Japanese Buddhists used ideas such as Zen more than other Buddhists. Japan had some contact with the Europeans in the 16th century. The Portuguese were the first Europeans to visit Japan. Later, the Spanish and Dutch came to Japan to trade. Also, they brought Christianity. Japan's leaders welcomed them at first, but because Europeans had conquered many places in the world, the Japanese were scared they would conquer Japan too. So the Japanese did not let the Europeans come into Japan anymore, except in a small area in Nagasaki City. Many Christians were killed. Only the Chinese, Korean and Dutch people were allowed to visit Japan, in the end, and they were under careful control of the Japanese government. Japan was opened for visitors again in 1854 by Commodore Matthew Perry, when the Americans wanted to use Japanese ports for American whaleboats. Perry brought steamships with guns, which scared the Japanese into making an agreement with him. This new contact with Europeans and Americans changed the Japanese culture. The Meiji Restoration of 1868 stopped some old ways and added many new ones. The Empire of Japan was created, and it became a very powerful nation and tried to invade the countries next to it. It invaded and annexed Ryukyu Kingdom, Taiwan and Korea. It had wars with China and Russia. The First Sino-Japanese War, the Boxer Rebellion, the Russo-Japanese War, and the Second Sino-Japanese War, which grew to become a part of World War II when Japan became allies with Nazi Germany and Fascist Italy. In 1941, Japan attacked Pearl Harbor in Hawaii, a water base of the United States, and destroyed or damaged many ships and airplanes. This started the United States' involvement in World War II. American and Japanese forces fought each other in the Pacific. Once air bases were established within range of the Japanese mainland, America began to win, and started dropping bombs on Japanese cities. America was able to bomb most of the important cities and quickly brought Japan close to defeat. To make Japan surrender, the United States dropped 2 atomic bombs on the cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, killing 150,000 Japanese citizens. Soon after this the Soviet Union began to fight against Japan, and the Japanese army in Manchuria lost. Japan surrendered and gave up all the places it took from other countries, accepting the Potsdam Proclamation. The United States occupied Japan and forced it to write a new constitution, in which it promised to never go to war again. Geography. Japan is a group of islands in the western Pacific, off the coast of China. The 4 biggest islands are Honshu, Hokkaido, Shikoku, and Kyushu, and there are about 6,000 smaller islands there. Japan is separated from the Asian continent by the Sea of Japan and the East China Sea. Honshu, which means mainland in the Japanese language, is the biggest island. Hokkaido is the island north of Honshu. Kyushu is the island west of Honshu. Shikoku is the island to the southwest of Honshu. In the middle of Japan there are mountains. They cover the middle of the islands and leave a very narrow strip of flat land on most coasts. Many of the mountains are extinct volcanoes, but some are still active. The highest of these mountains is the beautiful, volcano-shaped Mount Fuji, 3,776 meters or 12,389 feet high. Japan has many earthquakes, in fact there are about 1,500 of these every year. The most recent big earthquake was in 2011 called 2011 Tohoku Earthquake. It caused great damage to several power plants, forcing Japan to shut down all its nuclear plants. There was nuclear core meltdown which caused a serious health risk to nearby villages and cities. 90% of the people living in Japan live in just 10% of the land, near the coast. The other 10% of the people in Japan live away from the coast. Over 10 cities have more than 1 million people in them. The biggest city in Japan is Tokyo, which is the capital. Economy. Japan is the third largest national economy in the world, after the United States and China, in terms of nominal GDP, and the fourth largest national economy in the world, after the United States, China and India, in terms of purchasing power parity. As of 2017, update, Japan's labor force consisted of some 65 million workers. Japan's main exports are transportation equipment, motor vehicles, iron and steel products, semiconductors and auto parts. Agriculture and fishery. The Japanese agricultural sector accounts for about 1.4% of the total country's GDP. Only 12% of Japan's land is suitable for cultivation. Because of this lack of arable land, a system of terraces is used to farm in small areas. This results in one of the world's highest levels of crop yields per unit R. In 1996, Japan ranked 4th in the world in tonnage of fish caught. Japan ranked 7th and captured 3,167,610 metric tons of fish in 2016. Some claim that Japan's fishing is leading to a depletion in fish stocks such as tuna. Japan has also sparked controversy by supporting quasi-commercial whaling. Industry. Japan has a large industrial capacity and is home to some of the largest and most technologically advanced producers of motor vehicles, machine tools, steel and non-ferrous metals, ships, chemical substances, textiles, and processed foods. Some major Japanese industrial companies include Canon Inc., Toshiba and Nippon Steel. The country's manufacturing output is the third highest in the world. Japan is the third largest automobile producer in the world and is home to Toyota, the world's largest automobile company. Tourism. Japan attracted 24.03 million international tourists in 2016. Science and technology. Japan is a leading nation in scientific research, particularly in the natural sciences and engineering. Japanese scientists and engineers have contributed to the advancement of agricultural sciences, electronics, industrial robotics, optics, chemicals, semiconductors, life sciences and various fields of engineering. Japan leads the world in robotics production and use. As of 2009, update, $6 billion of Japan's $20 billion gaming market is generated from arcades, which represent the largest sector of the Japanese video game market, followed by home console games and mobile games at $3.5 billion and $2 billion, respectively. Japan is now the world's largest market for mobile games. In 2014, Japan's consumer video game market grossed $9.6 billion, with $5.8 billion coming from mobile gaming. The Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency is Japan's national space agency. It conducts space, planetary, and aviation research, and leads development of rockets and satellites. Society and culture. Many things in Japanese culture originated in China, like Go and bonsai. Japan's traditional food is seafood, rice, miso soup, and vegetables. Noodles and tofu are also common. Sushi, a Japanese food made of cooked rice with vinegar with other ingredients such as raw fish, is popular around the world. The religion in Japan is mostly Shinto and Buddhist. Due to the tolerant nature of the two main Japanese religions, and the resulting mixing of the two, many Japanese identify as both Shinto and Buddhist at the same time. There are small numbers of Christians and Muslims, and a few Jews. Cities. The biggest cities in Japan are Tokyo, Yokohama, Nagoya, Osaka, Kyoto, Kobe, Hiroshima, Fukuoka, Kita, Kyushu, Sendai, Sapporo, Nagasaki. In Japan there are 8 traditional regions: Hokkaido Tohoku Kanto Chubu Kansai Chugoku Shikoku Kyushu Okinawa Territorial Problem. Since Japan is an island nation, Japan has several problems over territory because maritime boundaries can be hard to protect. These days, Japan is competing for at least 4 different territories. It cannot agree with some neighboring countries on whether the land belongs to Japan or the other country. Senkaku Islands Problem, with China and Taiwan. Liancourt Rocks Island Problem, with South Korea. Southern Tsushima Islands Problem, with Russia. Sea of Japan Problem, with South Korea and North Korea. Public transportation. There are several important international airports in Japan. Narita is the major international airport in the Tokyo area. Kansai International Airport serves as the main airport for Osaka, Kobe, and Kyoto. Chubu Centraire International Airport near Nagoya is the newest of the 3. Haneda Airport is close to central Tokyo and is the largest domestic airport in the country. The Shinkansen is one of the fastest trains in the world and connects cities in Honshu and Kyushu. Networks of public and private railways are almost all over the country. People mostly travel between cities in buses. Sports. Japan has many traditional sports such as sumo, judo, karate, kyudo, aikido, iaido and kendo. Also, there are sports which were imported from the West such as baseball, soccer, rugby, golf and skiing. Japan has taken part in the Olympic Games since 1912. It hosted the Olympic Games in 1964, 1972 and 1998. From 1912 until now, Japanese sportspeople have won 398 medals in total. Professional sports are also popular and many sports such as baseball, soccer, sumo, American football, basketball and volleyball, are played professionally. You can subscribe to support our channel and turn on the notification bell to be notified of new videos.